Hello, my name is Annabelle Wilson, and this is my intentional teaching plan for supporting diverse literacy learners. Alexander is currently reading on a beginning third grade reading level, as indicated by his 2017 Winter New Year test. Alexander enjoys being at school, and one area of strength for him is art. Alexander has an IEP for his ADHD and other learning disabilities. Alexander often finds that focusing on tasks for an extended period of time challenging. As a result, he often needs frequent reminders and breaks. Student B. Emily is currently working in a 6th grade reading level. Emily scored 221 on her 2017 Winter New Year test. Scores between 215 and 228 are considered average for 6th grade students in reading. One area of academic strength for Emily is band and writing. In these classes, Emily earned a 3.7 and 3.2 respectively. Peter scored a 241 on his Winter 2017 New Year reading test. A score of 241 places Peter on the 97th percentile. Scores between 238 and 244 are considered average for students reading an 11th grade reading level. Aside from reading, one other area of academic strength for Peter is writing. In writing, Peter scored a 3.2 on his third quarter report card. Creating a literate environment. Strategy 1. Creating a classroom library that fosters independent readers. My classroom library is a component of my classroom that I take great pride in. The following are suggestions that I have for developing a diverse and effective classroom library. Advertising. Each time a new book is placed on display, I conduct a book advertisement. This helps to encourage students to try different texts. Display. Ensuring that texts from a variety of reading levels are on display. Book stands often work well for this too. And accountability. Once students have read a book, I ask them to complete a book talk with me. This also helps to ensure that students are reading on their own and at home. Sign-out sheet. The sign-out clipboard also allows me to keep track of what books students might have taken home and when they're returned as well. Creating a literate environment. Strategy 2. Use of manipulatives for encoding and decoding. I have found that the use of these letter tiles have been beneficial when assisting students with encoding and decoding skills. The physical manipulation of these letters, along with the identification of sounds and patterns, have been helpful skills for developing sound encoding and decoding skills. Elkonon boxes. For some of my below grade level spellers, we've been using the combination of letter tiles and Elkonon boxes, or sound boxes. As many of these students are visual or kinesthetic learners, the physical and visual manipulation of letters has been successful. Strategy 3. Teach a read aloud. I begin each of my 6th grade reading classes with a 10-minute read aloud from a text selected by my students. I find that this 10-minute time block is beneficial for the following reasons: choice text, activation of literacy mindset, and prompts thinking readers. Strategy 4. Small group reading and spelling instruction. Within my reading classroom, I have 5 reading groups and 4 spelling groups. These reading and spelling groups allow me to provide differentiated assignments, instruction, and homework. The following are suggestions that I have for small group instruction. Environment. I've been using a horseshoe table or a big table for all group members to sit around. It also allows us all to have eye contact with one another and to be able to speak with one another as a group. Feedback. Using observations to guide further instruction. This might occur from small book readings or other assignments administered in our small group work. Independent task. While students are meeting with me in a small group setting, I have the rest of my students working on a literacy station or another simple self-directed task. Incorporating best practices in literacy instruction. Student A. Alexander would benefit from literacy instruction that assists him in developing metacognitive skills while reading. After reading a section of text, Alexander often has difficulty identifying specific details about what he has read. One suggestion that I have is strategies that encourage think aloud whilst Alexander is reading. As Alexander is working on developing metacognitive skills while reading, it would be beneficial for him to practice thinking aloud while reading. This activity could be fostered while reading his weekly leveled reader. Please see the next slide for examples of think aloud questions that a teacher could support Alexander with while reading Animals Helping People. Incorporating best practice in literacy instruction. Student B, Emily. Emily is a competent speller who is in one of my highest spelling groups. While Emily is an effective speller, one area of reading that she could work on is vocabulary acquisition and use. Sometimes during our small book groups, small spelling instruction, I have noticed that Emily is able to spell her set words. However, she is unsure of how to use her words in dialect. One suggestion that I have is meaning sorts. This was suggested by Words Their Way. Student C, Peter. Peter is a talented student in my reading classroom. Throughout the week, Peter receives additional support from our middle school gifted and talented teacher. As Peter is far above the 6th grade reading level, one strategy that I have implemented to assist him in continuing to grow as a reader is an extension novel study. Peter, along with 3 other high-achieving reading students, have been studying the book Peak by Ronald Smith. Determining the just right level. According to Connie H. Herbert, in her text Catch a Falling Reader, regular assessment followed by reflection is one of the best courses of action when determining the just right level of challenge for each student. Herbert also makes the following suggestions: listening to students read aloud, observing students' ability to work independently on an assigned literacy task, and utilizing her reader's behavior checklist. Setting an appropriate challenge. Parental communication. When Peter started reading Peak, I sent home a letter to his parents explaining the intention of the task and my reasons for selecting the title Peak. Through the letter to Peter's parents, I was able to present my classroom observations and assessment data that supported my decision to provide Peter with an extended academic activity. My first snapshot of Day 3, Journeys, in our leveled book selection. Through this table here, I explain how I've differentiated my instruction for each of my 3 students. You can see here that in each of the 3 small book groups, each student receives a slightly different instruction from the overall intention of the task and the objective of the lesson to be able to utilize textual evidence to support an idea or thought. In this example here, this lesson, students are explaining the cause and effect in the main selection for the week. The following slide explains how I've differentiated my instruction for each of the 3 students. Alexander, for example, receives additional support from our education technician, and he also has the ability to review the text afterwards through an audio recording. For students such as Peter, I use my knowledge of high road bridging questions to prompt him in thinking further beyond the text and to possible connections for the present day. The following are my 2 rationales for Lesson A and Lesson B. The following is my understanding of the transfer of learning and my opinions on how it is implemented throughout my classroom in a structural approach and an instructional approach. Effectiveness and impact of learning. The following is student-directed feedback that I believe occurs in my classroom and new year data and the use that these can provide in allowing me to see how my students have developed and progressed. Thank you for listening to my slideshow.